What's up? What's up? What's up?
Hello, fellow apron pussies.
I love that.
Thank you for joining us at the Rey Theater for, what is it, second live show? There you go. Thanks. That's Rob Mahoney.
Hi.
That's Big Woz.
What up, y'all?
I'm Justin Verrier, and welcome to Group Chat Live. We got Chris Ryan with us tonight. We got J. Kyle Mann. We got some Q&As. We got a meet and greet. So if you want to stay after the show, we'll be out in the lobby. But I think first, we need to talk about the Boston Celtics.
Oh, God.
I think they've got the right idea.
So I don't know if you guys caught it, but the Celtics won a title yesterday. And who among us could have predicted such a thing?
Yes, it's almost like somebody's been banging the Celtics all year, and it actually came through. And
How do you feel, Justin?
I feel vindicated.
Do you?
Yeah, I feel right, which I'm now used to. You know,
We do owe you a dinner.
it's true.
Yes.
Justin tried to convince us to wear leprechaun costumes tonight. It did not take.
Rob
But we owe you something.
was against it.
I mean, come on.
Can I actually get a read of the crowd? Would you guys have been into Rob and Woz wearing leprechaun costumes?
See?
I'd say mostly positive. I'll take that as a.
You're insulting my culture.
Are you even Irish?
Yes.
Oh, I didn't. I actually didn't.
dare
Mahoney
that.
is an Irish name, brother.
I think this is now an HR violation.
Yes.
So we're going to talk a little bit about the finals. We're going to talk about the offseason with Chris. We're going to talk draft with Kyle Mann because, believe it or not, we don't know shit about this
Not a
draft.
thing.
So I wrote down 4 possible butterfly effects now that Boston has its 18th title. First and foremost, I want to ask you guys, Celtics, now brimming with confidence, become the team that some people thought the Nuggets were going to be this season.
Yeah.
What do you think?
I see what you did there.
Yeah.
I see what you did there. Well, so how do you think they'll be the version of the team that we thought the Nuggets would be?
I think if you're an optimist, you might say part of the issue with the Celtics was whatever was happening to them late in some of these games, the gumminess of the offense, Jason Tatum, all that stuff. Now that they have the wind under their sails, now that they know that they've done it, can that kind of overcome some of the issues that they faced? Maybe they become the sort of dominant team that we thought the Nuggets were this season.
I mean, they've been in their head probably more than any very good to great team in recent memory has been. And so the idea of some kind of cleansing or exercising of demons, I think, is very tempting. And yet, I think we're going to get sucked back into the same cycle with them, Woz. Are we not going to have the same conversation next year? Is it going to meaningfully change, do you think?
I think it's definitely going to be the same conversation amongst our cohort, right? Because some people, I'm not one of them, will want to denigrate the championship and say it was easy, the road was whatever, and all the injuries in the East, which I think you might, whatever, you can agree with that or not. Look, they beat the hell out of the fucking Mavericks. They fucking pounded their heads in. And the Mavericks played legitimate teams on the way. So I'm not going to sit here and be like, the championship is fake. They did what they had to do. They handled their business, unlike the Wolves, unlike my Nuggets, unlike OKC, unlike a bunch of other teams. And so I'm not going to say that. But what I will say, Tatum's going to get his money. We're already hearing that Derek White is going to get his money. Everybody's going to be nice and fat. Everybody's going to be kissing their ass and patting them on the ass all summer. They're going to be hearing that shit for a long time. Will they come out next year with the same hunger, with the same intensity, with all this shit to prove? Will Jason Tatum still be pounding his chest and yelling at people? I don't know. It remains to be seen. But that's the kind of thing I think could trip them up is complacency.
Maybe we're not learning from the Celtics, but we are learning from you, Justin, who came out of last year's title with the Nuggets and taught us all, Woz and I and all of our fair listeners, just because you win it all doesn't mean you're perfect. And you can come into a season with flaws. And I think the Celtics' flaws are still there to some extent, but they were historically dominant in their run through the East. They're going to be a great contender again, but you have to prove that you can beat your flaws every time out. It's not you do it once and then all of a sudden you're cured.
Well, also, do we know what Kristaps Porzingis is going to look like next season after this mysterious injury that nobody has ever had that is now going to take months to recover from? And so Al is going to be, 38 next year? It sounds like he's going to come back. Obviously, he has been awesome at his age, but you assume he's going to fall off eventually. And unless they replace the Cornet minutes or really get comfortable with O'Shea Brissett in that role, I mean,
You're cutting too deep. We just started this podcast. You're getting to O'Shea Brissett.
Look, I think
we're in the future, you know?
I think the Kristaps injury problems is baked into the structure of the team in the sense that, like, that's why they are as deep as they are. Like, because they can't rely on any one person to get things done. And I think, look, they won most of these games without Kristaps. Kicked the Mavericks' ass 2 times without Kristaps, right? And so I'm not too worried about the Kristaps stuff. I just think it's the regular things that happen. Like, teams are going to retool this offseason, make trades before the deadline with the express written consent of the NBA to kick the Celtics' ass. And so now that everybody's gunning for them and people are going to be like, you know what? We need to gear our schemes and make our roster towards beating these fucking people in Boston. I think it'll just be a little bit different next year, man.
I was afraid what you were going to say there.
We're dangerously close to the rails.
People.
Well, I mean, the East could be significantly better next season. The West was a goddamn slaughterhouse this year, but the East, they could be almost as top-heavy as what we saw in the West. Philly, we'll talk about probably later.
Sure.
Milwaukee with another offseason with Dame actually working out during training camp.
Yep.
And Indy presumably better than the Knicks. There's a lot of teams there, so this could get harder. And I wonder if Kristaps was their margin to be the dominant team that could automatically vault over those sorts of teams.
I think even with that question, they just have so much less to prove than all those other groups. Like the Bucks are a great example. They have so much to figure out before next year's playoffs, including like how do their core guys stay on the floor. You don't really wonder that with Tatum and Brown in particular. And so Kristaps can be the variable you're talking about.
You know we love those.
And even if he doesn't play for a chunk of the season, they can still be a great team.
Number 2 on the list, Joe Mazzulla answering press's questions like Morpheus becomes the new getting popped.
This is very inside media of you.
Yeah, are you guys familiar with the idea of getting popped?
It's back when Popovich would be mean to every single sideline interview person. Lisa Salters would be like, Pop, like, you guys are playing good defense. Could you tell us something about that?
Literally making Doris Burke cry.
Yeah. It became a weird cuck thing for a lot of media members.
Yeah,
media people did really love it.
They loved getting bashed. So,
well, not even just that. People would be like, oh my God, there goes Pop again being rude and an idiot. Oh, it's so great. And, you know, after a while, everybody got the hint that shit's not funny. But for a while, people were clapping for it. And I think what Justin's saying is, will people start clapping for Joe Mazzulla referencing Jesus Christ at a press conference when asked about black coaches?
Well, I don't know about that one.
It's a different take on the Matrix.
I don't think anybody's ever going to clap for that.
I think it's 2 things. I think
not with Juneteenth around the corner. Man. Come on, can't do that.
I would never. I wonder if Mazzulla becomes one of the biggest characters in the NBA. I also wonder if he starts to get heat as like among the best coaches in the NBA.
He's a very good coach. Is he not one of the biggest characters among coaches already?
But that's a really low bar.
I mean, it is a low bar. But look, there's an opportunity there. NBA coaches are maybe more boring than they've ever been. They refuse to even tell you who they're starting in a game until they turn in their official card. God forbid you give up the state secret of who's going to start in one of these games. And Joe Mazzulla coming out and being a total weirdo all the time has a certain appeal to it.
I think for it to take another level, though, like the "are they Christian and not black" thing would have to be covered on First Take. Like,
you want him in the culture war.
That's when. Well, I would love for that to be in the culture war.
That's how you transcend.
That's my kind of culture war. But like, I think that's how Mazzulla though would transcend everything. Is if he started getting covered like an actual celebrity. Like nobody really took him serious all year. He's this new guy. He's a younger coach. They don't parse his words like on Bill's show. Like Bill, was making fun of him all year, but it was like coaching related stuff. It wasn't about his personality.
Second row Joe. That's right.
Second row Joe. Yes, exactly. I think if people start really treating him like the celebrity that he might become, then maybe.
Is he ready to be a celebrity?
I don't think we're ready for him to be a celebrity.
It sounds like it. There's a void.
All right, question number 3. Other teams go looking for their Jrue Holiday, and we're saying this is a veteran to kind of downshift into a supplementary role. I mean, we talked about this in the Trends podcast a couple of weeks ago. I do wonder if one of the lessons from this playoffs is teams being a little less precious with their draft picks, especially going into this draft.
Yeah.
Give a real, fuck them picks, Snead, as everyone in LA probably is very familiar with, attitude, and they just try to build the best possible version of the team immediately, which the Celtics did, the Mavs did too.
I don't know. I'm dubious to that because the Celtics are a team that went to like 6 conference finals in a row, right? So at a certain point, they're not taking a gamble on Jrue Holiday. This is a team that's gone to the finals, gone to the conference. Like, they've been competitive. They've been right there for a bunch of years, and it was like, fuck that. We're doubling down on what we have here. We believe in it. Now, if Indiana wants to be like, fuck our future and just start getting vets and loading up because they went to the conference finals this year, I don't know that I would necessarily agree with that approach. I think it's different strokes for different folks.
Well, we're basically talking about 4 teams that own almost all of the future picks at this point. You got the Thunder, the Jazz, the Cavs, maybe the Nets, if you want to include that in that conversation with how much they got from Phoenix. But
the Nets.
These other teams, I agree with you, are probably going to be desperate. I think that's what we did see is, even not in the Jrue Holiday bracket, but at the deadline, if you're close at all, you should go for it. You should be trading for Daniel Gafford and PJ Washington, and you might break through and make the finals.
Or maybe the lesson, Justin, like the meme that I sent you guys, is that you don't give up on your core, and when opportunity strikes, you do what you do. So Atlanta shouldn't give up on Jrue, on
DeJounte Murray,
sorry, and Trae Young. Yeah,
they tried to give up on us. I heard Chris Ryan was trying to get our show canceled, and I fought to keep this core together.
Appreciate that. I don't know how many games we're winning. I don't know how many duck boats we're going to get with this pod, but we'll see. I wrote down 2 guys who might fit this mold because in reality, I think it is kind of a pretty tried and true method. Teams just kind of going out and getting a last piece either at the deadline or in the offseason when you have a team this close. But for instance, if the Warriors decide to shake things up pretty significantly, does a team like, for instance, the Lakers or somebody else that is already right there be like, you know what, Draymond? Fuck our picks in the future. We just want this guy to come in. Lakers, maybe not so much because they need other pieces in addition to that. You kind of need to be one team away. But he's the type of guy where it's like, we take the risk. Jrue didn't have the risk, but obviously Draymond does. But he comes in and just does all the little things.
Draymond is your Jrue Holiday?
So that's what I was going to say. That was my problem. Like, sometimes people say, like, the picks are blowing up your future. Like, Draymond is like a suicide bomber with a like bomb strapped to his chest. Like, you're blowing up your future with the picks, and then you're killing yourself by, not checking his papers,
Whoever it's going to be, it's got to be someone who's a good soldier. Like, someone who's willing to do less, willing to take a smaller role. Like, that's the magic of Jrue or whoever you want to point at with any championship team. There's always somebody who's doing that. Draymond is not that kind of person.
I think of, when Golden State went out and got Iguodala.
Yep.
That's
like, to me, that was the move.
That's kind of the modern template, really, for this.
Where you say, a guy who was considered to be a star in his role in other places, like he was looked at as a potential all-star damn near every year, comes into a situation and he becomes a supercharged role player. I think that's the type of move you want to make. But again, it should be for a high-quality guy, a person whose behavior you have a reasonable expectation that you can predict. I don't know that Draymond necessarily fits in that category.
Well, the other guy I have written down was Jeremy Grant, just because the Blazers have so many of these mid-tier vets. Honestly, a lot of the Celtics castaways. Can he be that for another team? Seems like he doesn't want that. He probably could have had that with the Nuggets, but I do wonder if the Blazers keep losing, does he want to go find that with the Miami? Sacramento could be in that sort of territory. Sure. Maybe if the Mavs like significantly mess things up, but I don't think they have the picks capital to get him.
Not to go full apron pussy on this, but this is where it becomes a problem. Is with salaries like Jeremy Grant's.
That's a great point.
When the luxury of having an amazingly overqualified 5th or 6th or 7th best player on your team, we may see that kind of fall away, and we may see the Celtics fall away over time. Like, this is going to be a really expensive core to maintain as you go year over year. Like, Jrue has already gotten paid in addition to all the other guys we've walked through. I don't know how many teams are really going to be willing to do that.
Yeah. I could just see this summer. Remember when Kyle Lowry or when Chris Paul had success as like the old guard, point guard who latched on to the Suns and just like reared the youth. I could see that. And then Kyle Lowry, everyone was like, he's going to be the next guy. And the Pelicans cleared all that cap for him and then didn't get him. I could see that being said about Jrue. Like, we need to go find our Jrue. Yeah.
Sure.
What do you think about shooting too? I think that's the other thing we're going to hear a lot about. Teams being like, well, they worked the math advantage pretty significantly. Can we do the same? If I could take this, I think it's like pretty tough because I think everyone already realizes the math advantage with shooting, but the Celtics just did it better and just more extremely than everybody else. But I think we're going to hear this a lot.
I don't know how you replicate the Celtics formula when they have two guys in-house who are wing players, the most premium position in the league, pass, dribble, shoot, defend. That's the secret. Like, they already have...
Get guys who are really good.
Yeah, like, they already have two guys at that position. So now, when you go out and trade for Derek White, he doesn't really have to be your point guard. He doesn't have to go out and be Chris Paul. Jrue Holiday can come out and just make wide-open layups and wide-open threes, right? And then Kristaps, I think he played an incredible part of taking the lid off of that thing. But I think it starts with having the two J's, man. And you can't really replicate that.
Yeah,
unless you think Jaden McDaniels is the next.
Jaden Springer. Just get all of the J's.
I don't know if we learned anything about shooting in these playoffs. We knew it was valuable. It was clearly ultra valuable to the Celtics specifically. It allows them to be who they are. But does this feel like an evolution? Maybe a logical endpoint of a thing we already knew, but it doesn't feel like growth to me.
Well, to get super nerdy, I don't know if this is the appropriate forum.
I think this is the place.
Come on, man.
Yeah.
We amongst Laker fans, the smartest fans in the industry.
Okay, all right.
Come on, man. Everybody knows that.
Is there a defensive counter to this? Do defenses find some sort of wrinkle because so many teams are rushing to play the way the Celtics are?
Yeah, it's the Golden State thing all over again. It's try to be as switch heavy as possible, force these guys to beat you one-on-one. Basically what the Celtics did to everybody else, people need to be trying to do to them, right? Like, make it a Tatum one-on-one, make the right decision every single time, make a couple of step backs, make Kristaps beat you in isolation. It becomes that thing, because I think that's when people figured out how to slow down Golden State and get them out of their beautiful game movement stuff. It's like, let's switch everything, keep everybody in front, make Klay Thompson put it on the floor.
There is a degree with Boston that's kind of similar to whether you want to think about like the Warriors or the Rockets teams of those era, where they kind of make you play like them and they're better at it than you are. And so the more prepared you are to do that, and the Mavs were not, like, they just weren't able to get downhill. They weren't able to get to all the other things they want to do that the Celtics don't have any interest in at all.
Yeah. So last one I have here, speaking of the Mavs, Luka switches to light beer, invests in a Versa climber, and comes back next season in the best shape of his life.
Do we think the beer is the problem?
I think if he switched to light, it would help. I think anything would help at this
What's
point.
the hookah consumption?
Yeah.
Oh, so you think that's the big issue?
I'm not here to diagnose. I just know, like, some things need to change if he's
you a
going to
hookah
improve
guy?
that part of his game.
Are you a hookah guy?
Am I a hookah guy? Do I look like a hookah guy to you?
Have you ever tried hookah?
Yes.
Okay.
But no, I'm not a hookah guy. I know enough to know that I'm not.
Okay.
Same.
I don't know. I think when somebody plays as well as Luka did the entire postseason on a bad wheel with the chest contusion and all of that, I understand why he might think, look, man, I was good enough to get us to the fucking finals. Why do I need to change my regimen? And I just wonder when, you got a Boy King situation up there in Dallas where everybody's literally scared shitless of the guy, who's going to actually tell him to do something different up there?
Rob?
That's my job? That's Brian Windhorst's job.
Well, I guess, yeah. They got to hire Windhorst. Shit.
Him in-house.
Yeah,
he's also 25 years old. Like, I don't want to Boy King Luka too much. Like,
true.
He's an adult man who should be making adult, like, professional decisions. And sometimes he doesn't. And while he doesn't, he's maybe the best, or like I would say at worst, like the third best basketball player in the world. So it reminds me of Shaq in a lot of ways, of these guys who can be completely dominant, never take it 100% seriously, and he could still end up winning titles as a result of that.
What about the thing we do with, like, Eastern Bloc guys? Like, because he's from, like, a war-torn country, he doesn't need to do any of this shit. Like,
he can
is that a thing we do?
What is this thing?
Yeah, like, he's, like, tough and hard scrabble, like the Jokic brothers and shit. Like, these guys are serious. They're from a war-torn country. Like, exactly. He played in Europe. Like, maybe he doesn't need to conform to all the things that every other professional athlete who achieves stuff does. Maybe.
So any other player taking drags, irresponsible. Luka smoking, he's
hey,
a
that
European.
was part of Lottie Divac's charm, I was told, back in the days. So,
True. But I think this is his team until he gets to his next contract at this point. This is kind of the come down effect of the magical postseason run. Now you're like, oh, we are locked in. And I think to some degree, like, that could be a little scary. But I think for him, he probably needs to do these little things on the margin because there really isn't much help coming unless they swing like Tim Hardaway Jr.'s expiring into something. And you're just hoping for internal improvement. Now, Lively is young. He's going to improve. PJ Washington was awful in the postseason, only had half a season. Gafford only had half a season. So there's stuff to internally improve, but it is going to come internally, I think, if they're going to make the leap from making a finals to being the finals favorite in the West.
And you have the offsets of Kyrie Irving getting older. And for, a guy who's alleged to be the most skilled player in the history of the NBA.
Oh, my God.
You got to offset that somehow.
So I don't know. What do you think about the West next season? Are you like Mavs right at the top there? Are you expecting the Nugs?
Nah, I'm back on. I'm still Nuggets hive. I'm still back on the Nuggets for sure. I think they still have.
You think we would not be back on our bullshit?
No. I'll be back. The Thunder. I'll be back on my Nuggets. I think the Thunder will be tough.
Yeah.
I mean, they got to do something about the size. You saw the trade deadline where Presti, the pick hoarder, was like, oh, we don't need to do anything. We'll just go to the postseason. We don't care about rebounding and shit like that. And they got their asses kicked on the boards, right?
I mean, they were like within a shot and change of the Western Conference Finals.
Rob, that they lost in the second round. We're not talking about the actual nitty gritty. We just going with the narrative. No, but I think OKC will be really good again. I think the Wolves will be back being good again. I think they have an interesting offseason, honestly. I think the West is going to be tough again. Like, there's no guarantee that the Clippers. There's no guarantee that the Mavericks are going to be like in some incredible position to get back to the finals. And that's why I'm kind of disappointed in, just some of the lackadaisical ways they played at various points where, I get it. A lot of you guys are young and you're in the finals and it's like, oh, we'll be here again. It's like, that's not guaranteed.
I think it's going to be just a complete muck in the West. And the time for kind of like standing still with what you got is completely over. The Thunder have to keep pushing forward, but not just them. The Mavs just got to the finals, and DeBar from you was like, you got to do it again. You got to come back and do it again. And not just getting through the playoff like bracket, but you have to be aggressive all over again. You have to find ways like, can you improve on Derrick Jones Jr.'s spot in the rotation? Like, how do you become a better team? And all of these franchises have to be working the margins in that way.
He's really their only free agent. Do you think he comes back?
Derrick Jones?
Yeah.
He might. I mean, he was on the minimum. I think there's going to be a lot of interest in him, but he's also the kind of player who, like, by the end of the finals was almost unplayable in that rotation. Like, they were just not guarding him. So you could see how they could get better there, but everyone has to get better with their equivalent of the Derrick Jones. That's kind of what worries me about the way these Western Conference teams are operating. It's like some front office or some ownership is going to talk themselves into, oh, we can wait another year. This isn't our time. It's got to be everybody's time pretty much right now.
Well, since we're already talking about offseason, we should bring on our first guest. He is a Philly legend. It's Chris Ryan.
Let's go.
Hey, pal.
What's up, guys?
Hey.
What up?
Hey, Chris.
You missed one piece of the Celtics championship, which I disassociated through the entire last 6 weeks, so I haven't really processed that. But we haven't talked about them celebrating their finals victory in Miami.
Yes.
Which is either like a 4chan level troll job of heat culture or the weakest thing I have ever seen from a group of professional athletes. We were talking about this backstage. Could they not find anywhere to party in Boston for like 3 days before the parade? They had to go to Florida for this?
Waz, you're the Brian Windhorst of the NBA party scene. Do you want to take it?
Okay, so these guys are not happy with the decision for a bunch of rich, famous, easily identifiable black dudes not spending 3 days.
Those are your words. I was just saying.
Not spending 3 days and nights in the city of Boston partying. Like, there just isn't an infrastructure.
No, but that's what we're saying. It's not that we have a problem with the decision. It's that it's an indictment of Boston as a city. That's what we're saying.
I would. So if that's the case, I would say then that 99.99% of American cities are indicted.
Like, you heard it here first.
The only two places these guys can go to have the type of fun they're trying to have.
What kind of fun? What are you thinking about?
Yeah, what are they getting? What are they getting after?
I mean, it might involve, sex workers, strippers. You think Boston has as good as strippers as Miami?
You want to know?
So that's our show. This is a great time.
No, everybody knows this. And
Everybody knows this.
everybody knows this. And I think more importantly, again, like they will not have to do anything special to or at the places that they go in order to celebrate.
It should be special. Miami is going to be like, if Miami is about the Heat culture that they say that they're about, they're not going to welcome these dudes into Live. They're going to be like,
they're going to welcome them into Live.
I think a bunch of 100 millionaires will be welcomed into Live quite comfortably. And again, there's like, you can go out for a night in Boston and you can keep some shit open past 2 a.m. in Boston.
Yeah.
And it might be cool.
there might be a guy named Sully there.
It might be cool. In Miami, you can go to a place that's already open 24 hours a day.
There might be a girl named Michelle there. There might be a girl named Shine there. Yeah.
So how do we celebrate this show? Do we have to go to Vegas or is LA acceptable? Yeah.
Depending on the night, LA could be acceptable for us. If group chat were celebrating a championship, like let's say we went from the number 3 podcast in the number 3 NBA podcast in the entire world to number 1, and we wanted to celebrate a championship, we could probably do LA on the right night. But like realistically, But realistically, if we wanted to do it right, and we had the budget, it would be in Miami.
Do we have the budget?
I'm going to kick that one up to Sean, probably.
Like, okay, for instance, let's just say you want to get on a mega yacht tomorrow. You doing that shit in fucking Martha's Vineyard?
Yeah, for sure.
What's wrong with you people? They don't want to party with Barack Obama. They want to party with Monica Lewinsky. Come on, y'all. What's wrong with y'all, man?
Well, Chris, you came with some off-season agenda.
Yeah, I wanted to kind of preview the offseason.
That's what we call a transition.
They got me started, y'all.
Great
Sorry.
segue. Yeah. I wanted to preview the offseason in honor of our boss, Bill Simmons, who's not here tonight because he got arrested trying to rob Fenway Park last night. I thought I would do like old school Bill ESPN page 2 style column where I'm giving out basically off-season superlatives, off-season awards. He would usually use quotes from a movie like a Departed or Rounders. I'm going to do Joe Mazzulla quotes. This is really just an excuse to do Joe Mazzulla quotes. Shout out to Sierra. I was inspired by reading her piece on The Ringer about the Tao of Joe Mazzulla. I've also just been fascinated by his development over the course of the season from curiosity to megastar. It really clicked for me when I saw somebody had made a video of him saying the Kyrie thing about villains, but painted the Joker's face onto his face and was playing Dark Knight music underneath of it. And I was like, we have something here.
It's a classic.
This is a special character that we need to treasure.
Meme.
So the first one I want to give out an award to is his quote when he said, somebody asked him if he was excited to meet the royal family. And he said, Jesus, Mary, and Joseph. I'm only familiar with one royal family, and that one goes out to LeBron James. So the king, I still feel like he holds the keys to the entire offseason. In all likelihood, he will stay with Los Angeles. He's built his empire here. This is the county seat. These kids are around. Like, it's like I can't really see him leaving Los Angeles. But let's just say we wake up tomorrow and Woj tells us that the Lakers have given Bill Self a Godfather offer. And it's not going to be JJ coaching. It's not going to be Borrego or wherever LeBron wants. And he's just like, you know what? It's decision time again. Like, what if LeBron just takes the Derrick Jones Jr. spot? Like, I'm just saying, like, what if
3
he
and
does
D
something?
LeBron?
Are we at the point with year like 39, 40 LeBron where he could just be like, I'm going to do something really weird to like capture the offseason one last time before I ride off? Maybe it's not another ring he wants. He wants to own another offseason.
I mean, he's also better positioned to do it financially than anybody else.
He is.
Like Nike is his primary employer. So if he wanted to also work for the Phoenix Suns for the minimum, he could do it. He could get away with that.
I don't know. I have a hard time seeing it because how is he going to pay for his team that he's allegedly getting in Las Vegas?
This is my idea. Is if he goes to the Mavericks, what if Miriam Adelson breaks off a little something in Vegas? And is like, there's like a...
That would be a great mask off moment, right?
The chain of events.
Where LeBron was like a Breitbart head the entire time.
Maybe a VP spot?
And he's like... just completely unmasked. That
This
would
got
be amazing.
dark, right?
Yeah.
This is the Joe Mazzulla in all of us.
Yeah.
You just got to use your mind.
No, I think we've just been through so many off seasons with LeBron at this point that until he actually goes and does something differently, I remain unconvinced.
So you
there's
don't
no
think he's
way
going
he
back
is
to the
having a
Lakers?
quiet offseason.
I think he is going back to the Lakers until I hear otherwise.
Yeah, that's what I'm
Oh,
saying.
I feel the opposite. I
Really?
feel like he is not going to let Boston bask in the glory of like an uninterrupted 10-day news cycle and waiting until free agency starts. There's going to be some like LeBron is concerned with like the speed of the Lakers coaching decision. Something is going to happen with that. We could just put a pin in that. Keep it on.
you know what? This is the thing. I would believe that if the money weren't such an issue. Like, he put it out there. He leaked it via Windhorse that like he's trying to get a 3-year max deal, which is like 3 years, $170 million or whatever the hell it is this offseason. That's his primary concern. And like that felt like he was talking directly to the Lakers. If we were getting the reports from Wendy and the like that, like, yo, LeBron has all these crazy investments. He's so fucking filthy rich. It doesn't matter. He can go anywhere this offseason.
Yeah.
I'd be like, okay. But then I hear he wants money. So I just don't know how that works. You know, that being said, if I could pick a destination for the guy, it wouldn't be Dallas. It'd definitely be New York. I would love
Would that be your pick?
Shocker.
That would be your pick? Yeah, mine would be Philadelphia.
That would
Weird.
be my pick.
Here's the next Joe Mazzulla quote. Everybody wants to win until it's really time to win. And then you have to nut up and do a lot of shit you don't want to do. This one goes to Jimmy Butler.
Wow.
And in this case, the shit he might not want to do is play more than 60 games in a regular season and avoid the play-in with Chicago and Atlanta and perhaps just put his team in a slightly more comfortable position going into the playoffs. I know they're like the Warriors. You can't, not the Warriors W, capital W, lowercase w. Like they are the Warriors of the postseason and you can't count them out and they'll come from outside of the seeding to win the whole thing. But wouldn't life be easier if they were just like the 4 seed? You know, like, is it that hard to win 7 more games? And Jimmy is Jimmy. You know, it's like he's in the last year of his deal with Miami. I think he also wants the indication that he's going to be extended. Can he be extended now? Probably.
He wants it badly, but he's flirting with everybody else, the Lakers included and Cameron Brink included.
And you know who's not flirting?
Well, I don't know if that was the Lakers so much.
That's not like
It was incidental flirting. But Pat Riley is like, you know, guys need to be available. Like your best ability is, you know, your availability.
Yeah.
I just think that the Jimmy stuff is weird. I think the fact that like it's even been out there that he could wind up back in Philly is bizarre because that was not ultimately a positive experience for most of the people involved in that situation.
How do you feel about it?
I want to move forward. I think I just don't want to
close that chapter.
You don't want to
of your
look
life.
back.
It was awful. Like he was cool in the playoffs, although very erratic. But like him, every other week, it was some weird story about him like dressing down Brett Brown in a locker room.
Yeah.
So Brett Brown, maybe not as good of a coach as Nick Nurse. I don't know. Like it's a feedback situation. Like he just was offering some constructive criticism. But I don't want that back in Philly. Find a new slant exactly. Any other Jimmy Butler thoughts?
I thought the Pat thing was funny. It just feels like Pat's like kind of getting old and like doesn't really give a fuck.
But he does this every year.
But this was different because Jimmy didn't play in the playoffs because the dude fell on his knee.
Yeah.
His knee got like bent at a 45-degree angle, and so he couldn't play. This wasn't like some wear
Don't you
and
think
tear.
it was probably also like we didn't need to be
Yeah.
in that seating? Like we didn't need to play.
That's fair.
You could have been the 4 seed if he had just played.
That's probably
normal
a fair
season.
criticism. I just think like the guy's knee got legitimately cooked in the last game of the season.
Pat Riley also set Tyler Hero on fire in that press conference.
Well, he deserved it.
It's
Yeah.
incredible.
Here's
stuff.
my question. Is Miami as a destination, and I guess live as a destination as well.
We don't really do live like that no more.
Okay,
Yeah.
well,
It's out.
whatever the fuck
No,
they're
it's
doing.
not
in Miami.
out, but there's like other spots. It's like Mr. Jones. There's like other shit going on.
You don't have to say him on air. You can keep
Yeah,
it quiet.
well,
No free ads.
Booby
man.
trap.
When we're on the
this is-
PJ, we'll
do
talk
different
about
shit.
it.
Yeah.
Have they completely ridded themselves of the stench of whatever happened with Dwayne Wade? Because Butler kind of, to a large degree, got them back on track in the Star game. It wasn't that long ago when we were talking about fucking Deion Waiters and James Johnson and their cool off-season workout regimen and like what abs they have from just like doing a bunch of crunches all the time. Like, are we sure Miami is back to the point where they could say to Jimmy, no, we'll get somebody else?
I mean, they've been to several finals and a conference finals since then.
I mean, I'm sure Pat Riley thinks they're that. So that's kind of all that matters. Like, if the guy in charge wants to proceed that way and feel like, yo, we're the guys that get to dictate terms to people, then that's what they'll do. I don't know. I think when you're playing the superstar game, it's a crapshoot, man. Like, these guys are human beings. Like, you're at the mercy of their whims at all times. And no matter what, if that's what you're chasing, then you're chasing Dame Lillard's willingness to basically tell the entire Portland to go fuck themselves, or his willingness not to save face, and therefore not, forcing his way to your team. And so once you're playing that game, it's never going to be foolproof as far as I'm concerned.
Well, and the Dame Lillard thing isn't necessarily over. There's always photos circulating of him and Bam.
Yeah, I got it on good authority. They are very close friends. Bam is the reason he wanted to go to Miami.
It's linked to the Jimmy part of this for sure.
Is he going to play another Will Smith track over the offseason?
Maybe.
The closer you are to thinking you're going to beat them up, the closer you are to losing. This one goes out to the Sixers.
Yeah.
So I was actually in a pretty good headspace about this, just because
You sound convincing.
they only have 4 players. So how much wronger could it go? But I think around Game 4 of the NBA Finals, when I watched Joel Embiid tamper on live national television with Paul George, is when it occurred to me that they might not be that good at this. And then I watched a unearthed clip from all of 2 weeks ago of Paul George talking to Zach Randolph on his podcast, and them very, very loosely talking about James Harden has told everybody that Daryl Morey is a snake and that you shouldn't go play for the Sixers, and that guys talk and listen to one another. And I was like, that doesn't sound good. And I just think this is it's definitely in play that the Sixers are in play and driving up prices for people, but not actually landing anybody. I want to get a gut check from you guys.
Are you guys convinced about Ricky Council IV's upside? Because he might be running the offense next season.
No, why not?
I banged this James Harden thing on the show about as hard as anybody could bang anything.
That was this season.
That's
That's crazy to think about.
It's weird that the in-season tournament was this season. That feels like it was 100
Are we
years
sure?
ago.
There's still a banner, as you guys know.
The James Harden thing is real. As far as I know from the couple of people that I talked to that have a pretty good idea, Daryl Morey lied to this dude. He literally told him, don't accept that extension. That's how you're going to get to Philadelphia. We're going to make sure you get paid. Then proceeded not to pay him. Literally. And dragged it on over a couple of years. No. We got you. We're going to give you this little extension. And never paid the guy. And that's just a no-no. That's just something you do not do. The league literally runs on these handshake deals. And Daryl Morey breaking protocol on that is a big no-no. And so I could see somebody the level of Paul George being you know what? I'm not casting my lot with them. But, somebody like OG Anunoby, who's the 4th best player on a good team, he going to be hell yeah, if you want to overpay me, I'll be happy to go to
what are you doing?
Well, you don't have to fully trust a guy if they put a contract in front of you for $160 million.
Well, is this a litmus test for Embiid and how other guys view him? Because on the one hand, he's a fucking MVP candidate every year. On the other hand, he just got hurt again. Could this just be a signal that guys aren't as sure about him?
I mean, Paul George went to go play with Kawhi. It's not he's doing orthopedic drills on dudes before he signs contracts. Obviously, I think ultimately, I have a hard time having grown up in Philadelphia and lived here for 12 years, and I love Philadelphia. But if I had to choose one of 2 places to live between the fall and the spring, it would probably be Los Angeles.
Yeah,
and
probably.
So it's weird that he would be my whole life, I've just wanted to play in Southern California. I'm about to go into this new gym. Maybe he's going to feel disrespected by Ballmer given the season he just had, which was relatively productive and healthy.
Yeah.
But I don't know, man.
Also, certain points, your team, your organization has certain limitations, right? I think that's part of why LeBron got out of Cleveland that first time. He was just bro, there's no way I'm talking anybody of consequence to come live in the mistake by the lake. It's not going to happen. and maybe Daryl Morey is that lake in Cleveland for Philly. That might be the case, And, again, if you're talking about leaving Los Angeles or whatever. Like, you know, if the Sixers won the championship, I promise you they wouldn't spend 4 nights in a row in Philadelphia either.
All right, Woz.
I'm just saying, like,
there's an emerging food scene there that's just incredible, man. Like,
That's right.
you'd be surprised.
The Mediterranean is sick. You got to respect it.
I mean, it's only so much spicy rigatoni motherfuckers can have before they want to see something different. I don't know. I like Paul George saying that in public, I think is meaningful. I think people at that level will definitely care about that. Like, if you have the option of getting your maximum contract offer from multiple people, and one of those institutions, you know, have a history of like backstabbing people and doing fucked up shit, then it's like, I'll take my max offer somewhere else.
But this is why the Sixers are interesting, because it's not just Paul George. It's not just Jimmy Butler. It's not just OG Anunoby. It's all those guys, and kind of going down the chain one by one, saying, who will take our giant bag of money? And
also,
at some point, someone will take it.
Daryl being Daryl, like, which GM am I going to give a sleepless night by just being like, I'm just going to throw a Siakam deal down no matter what. Like, and you can match it or you can exceed it or whatever, but I'm just going to mess around.
Having said that, I don't know if Brandon Ingram mid-range jumpers probably gets you much closer to conference finals.
Dark.
There's no fouls in war. You either die or you don't.
Okay, that one's not real.
It is real.
That's real?
That's something I said on a podcast.
That's for Klay Thompson.
Oh.
Is Klay Thompson's NBA career like pretty much over? Or is he going to go play for Detroit or Washington and get like his money, but like, and get his shots, but not play on like a consequential basketball team? Or is there going to be a Warriors, like, we go out together oath that they keep?
It doesn't seem like the Warriors are inclined to keep that oath or to offer that oath. Like,
he unfollowed them on the Warriors on Instagram, by the way.
You know, very.
And on the podcast, I had to explain to Justin the archive feature on Instagram that, like, if he signs, he can just put the pics back up, like, automatically. But
I still don't understand it. I'm going to be honest. No, I think it's tough because what other teams can offer him, not only in terms of money, but in terms of just like his institutional value to a franchise, is going to mean more to a young team like the Orlando Magic, like the Detroit Pistons, than the Warriors. So, and on top of that, frankly, I think it's probably time that the Warriors start picking off part of their dynastic core anyway. Because
it just seems like unfair that it would be Klay who has to pay the price for that.
Totally.
When it's like, you guys respectfully, like, Draymond is at the center of the problems over the last 2 years, basically.
Let's get rid of him too.
But Draymond's been a much better player. Like, so at the end of the day, as awful as he's been as a human being or a teammate, he's produced more. And I think the Warriors are just going to call Klay's bluff. Because, like, if you read the tea leaves of people that are obviously talking to Klay in his camp, like the media stuff, it's like, well, Klay's not just going to take any money offer. He's definitely got winning. He definitely still wants to win. And it's just like, I don't think so. I think he's going to go out and get the richest contract that he gets offered. And I think that he should. He's won 4 fucking championships.
And teams like Orlando can win. And frankly, the Warriors aren't winning a ton these days. Yeah. They're fighting with everybody else. So, you know, I am inclined, sap that I am, to say just like keep these dudes together as long as you possibly can. But it's going to get real weird and real sad if you do that. So I think we're at the point where you have to start making hard decisions.
I got another one here. We kind of touched a little bit on it, but this is a Joe quote. If someone tells you good job, that's just as dangerous as someone telling you suck. This one goes to OG Anunoby because we're just a couple of weeks removed from this dude like dragging his like completely injured body out into the court to try and give the Knicks a chance of winning, having to get pulled after like 4 minutes. Oh, OG, you did it for the Garden. And then, now it turns out there's reporting that he's not thrilled with the initial sort of suggestion of what his offer is going to be from the Knicks. I bring this up more to ask, is there a unproven quote unquote star? So guys, if you're looking at the Ringer top 100, 30 to 45. So we're talking about OG, we're talking about Brandon Ingram, who are like, it's time for the max. I am accustomed to and expect to be compensated at the upper level of my game. And teams are like, you know what? I think we're gonna go for flexibility. You know, we're gonna go or a year less or a little bit of money less. And whether this will be a new phenomenon despite the cap going up, despite the $7 billion a year in TV money.
If Ingram gets anything resembling that, it's a disaster. Like, he's the perfect example of a guy who should never get that kind of offer, never get that kind of role. It's tough, though, when you're like a pretty good player who's just miscast as being a number one guy. And with that, you get all kinds of delusions as to what you should make, what kind of player you should be. OG's almost the opposite example, where he's been kind of siloed off for so long, standing in the corner. He yearns to breathe free. He wants to drive. He wants the ball. And he ends up in this like kind of situation where he could be the same guy, more or less, that he's always been, but in New York, playing for bigger things and better things with a better team. Or he could try to do more somewhere else.
I think the difference between those two guys is that one team got like a whiff of the conference finals. Like, oh, we could smell it. We could taste it. And the Pelicans are just perpetually a shit show, right? And so, like, if you're the Pelicans, how do you even justify to yourself bringing back Brandon Ingram?
I think because you're a shit show, sometimes you talk yourself into things.
They can still say to themselves, like, Brandon and Zion only played X amount of games together, you know? Like,
the Pelicans have options. That's the difference. Like,
kind of?
Yeah, I mean, we'll see if they pay the luxury tax, but they could turn Ingram into a different type of player because they have so much in terms of pick capital that they can do something else. Or they could just frankly turn it over to their young guards who are barely playing at all. And so I think OG and the Knicks do not have that. They don't have that luxury because they already made the trade to get him. Are they just going to let him go? I find this whole story leading up to this to be kind of just typical Asian negotiating in the public because it's like they're going to pay him, I think, ultimately, because the other option is letting him go after giving up RJ Barrett and Emmanuel Quickly.
I think the Knicks have just a more solid proof of concept, right? And their superstar is not addicted to like beignets and shit, right? So like the idea that they would go all in with the people that they have makes way more sense than New Orleans being like, let's run it back and see if Brandon Ingram can make a couple more fadeaway 19-footers. Like, to me, like keeping New Orleans the same makes absolutely no sense. Whereas overpaying OG Anunoby, like you could see the logic in that. You could see like, all right, we feel as good as anybody that we could, get to the conference finals, potentially play against Boston and take our chances. Whereas New Orleans, like realistically, what do they think they're going to accomplish next year?
I think they always convince themselves that they are the best version that they showed for like a 2-week stretch. In the regular season.
They seem to be finally disabusing themselves of that notion. Like I think they actually will do something significant now.
I think they're optimistic about what they have, but they don't know what the final version of it will be. I think they're more encouraged by Zion than ever before.
I don't think the final version will involve Brandon Ingram.
No, totally. I 100% agree with you. They need to do something else with him, for sure.
Yeah. Oh, go ahead.
I was going to say, like, even as far as OG, like, I'm almost reluctant to say overpay him because he's really good and really valuable, and that team can be really good with him.
He's always hurt.
They should have thought about that before they traded for him, right? I mean, like,
and that's always been the case. And he's got a reputation for being a little brittle, being like, all right, if I'm not 100%, I'm not coming back.
He was less than 100% when he dragged his
it was game 7, whatever it was. Like, I'll give him props for that. It was a do or die game. Yeah. So he
was actually trying to die out.
Yeah, he definitely did. But
unlike Kristaps.
Yeah. No, Kristaps did try to die. He came back.
Took Joe's advice to heart.
Yeah. I just think if the Knicks, man, like what they showed with this guy, even remotely healthy on the floor, their best moments in the playoffs, it just makes way more sense in a market that's actually freaking rich, and can pay people. Like that's a no-brainer to me. Whereas Brandon Ingram, like they should be trying to do something different.
Why are we just letting him do Knicks propaganda like uninterrupted? This is the podcast. Yeah, right. That's La pretty Familia. Much it. I had one more that I had really mixed feelings about bringing public. This was one from earlier in the season. I actually don't have an award. I just wanted to share this quote with you guys. I met 3 girls under the age of 21 who have terminal cancer, and I thought I was helping them, but they were helping me. Watching a girl that's dying, smiling, that's what it's really all about. Joe Mazzulla said that.
He said that.
And I guess in a weird way, I do understand what he's saying, but it's wild that this man just won the NBA Finals.
Yeah.
This is the new pop.
I think you're right.
What about that reads new pop to you?
He just has something. No, he has some magic in him.
Pop would be like, Greg, what adjustments do you have to make in the third quarter? Be like, the Dobbs decision is a disgrace. Joe Maz is like, just like reading samurai quotes. It's so weird.
Pop drinks a ton of wine. Joe apparently just does a ton of Molly or something. I don't know. Yeah.
Or UFC.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Chris. Everybody give it up to Chris Ryan. He'll be back with us for a Q&A. For now, we're going to bring out our other friend, J. Kyle Mann.
This guy's a fool.
You know, it's interesting to think about what they might have said had I not walked out with the Jason Tatum ruffles back, but I guess we'll never know. He's actually pretty good. I never had him before. And I'm not from West Virginia. I don't know if that was a specific song choice there, but we'll round to whatever.
There's a
cool.
regionalism.
It's all.
You don't really read Appalachian at all.
No. We're nobody really claims us, so it's cool. We'll move on. Yeah.
Well, Kyle, we brought you on around this time last year because, as you know, we don't know a fucking thing about the NBA draft. Actually, that's not true. I watched maybe 4 UConn games, so I know the bare minimum about 2 players.
Justin very bravely was like, "I'm going to watch UConn this year." A self-professed bragging UConn fan. I was like, very bold of you after back-to-back titles to invest in your team, Justin. Yes,
that's right, and I like what it's produced for our friendship, which is me just saying, "Oh, UConn got this guy. Fuck you," and then asking you who that guy is. So. Bringing us together.
Poser, yeah.
Yeah, totally. But the draft is coming up next week. Good God, that was quick.
Why?
It's crazy.
Why is that happening?
Kyle, what do you think about this draft? Just like big picture thought. Is it as bad as everybody is saying it is?
It's bad for some teams, for teams like that really needed to hit at the top of the lottery and have no roadmap of what they're doing. If you're a Washington, if you're the Pistons and you really needed a really, really great piece there at the top, if you're one of those teams that's lacking direction and you're trying to go from 0 to 1, just what are we doing? Yeah, it's brutal. If you're a team that has a young core or you have some pieces that you kind of understand and you need like a role player that would fit, yeah. But if you're kind of going down the line and you're like, is there an MVP in here? Probably not. The odds, but 2013 defied that. You never know. Is there an all-NBA player? Probably not, but there might be some all-defensive players. There's probably a lot of rotation level, playoff level kind of guys in this draft. So teams that are smart are going to make out like bandits, and teams that are dumb are just going to continue being dumb. So I guess that just kind of is evergreen anyway. So
wait, so you're saying there's no like Julius Randle, 3rd-team All-NBA level guy in this draft, you don't think?
We don't expect there to be one. Optimism isn't high. You can't say for sure. There's not a lot of like certainty. There are some guys that are kind of I think that are kind of sliding in the draft for this or that reason, that are falling, that we can kind of get into, that are kind of value plays for teams. But there's even those guys that are super talented, there are question marks about.
So there's 2 days of this shit now?
Yeah, we got to get Bronny James in the promo so that we can make sure. Please watch this. Please clap. Yeah.
Waz, are you ready for the live podcast we're doing on day 2 of the 2024 NBA draft?
No, but I'm ready for the one we do at Summer League.
That's right.
Which would be the highlight of Bronny's career, probably.
Okay.
No, I'm serious.
Okay.
I'm serious. No, seriously. Like, people are saying he's like a Avery Bradley.
Oh, yeah.
Tough defender. Yeah.
Like,
undersized guard.
Isn't
like
he?
a scrappy.
He has modeled himself in interviews as that. Davion Mitchell.
That type.
Sure.
The Puerto Rican kid from the Pelicans.
Jose Alvarado.
Alvarado, yes.
Yeah,
Grand Theft Alvarado.
Yeah.
When do those guys ever get as much attention as Bronny's going to get at Summer League for his first game?
Jose Alvarado has a lot of airtime. More than he deserves, I'll say.
More than he deserves. As a
His
human
little
being.
viral movement was pretty fun last spring of the PlayStation hide off the screen and then steal the ball.
That's
stuff. That was
Queens,
fun.
New York's own Jose Alvarado to you, Justin.
It's a wholesome story, Justin.
Yeah, you got a deal. It's a good story.
It's kind of a herb.
With Bronny, it's interesting to watch where we started and how we've sort of just like slowly.
Could you bring us through that arc? Because I remember it quite vividly.
The Matrix, there are levels of survival we're willing to accept kind of thing with the comps. We just keep going lower and lower and lower to the point where we're like, maybe he'll turn into GP2. Maybe he'll turn into GP2.
Wow.
Repeat that one to yourself. It started where we're like, okay, this guy's going to be a connector who can hit threes and be a playmaker. And those things are still possible, but, he didn't shoot the ball super well. It looks great, and it's, it visually isn't jarring or anything like that. But his size, he has a great wingspan. He's like 6'1". I've stood near him, and I've probably a little taller than him.
It stood near him.
I mean,
Congrats.
That's a nice name
I
drop.
get to stand near players sometimes. Yeah, Rob, you get on board here. So I think people were kind of thinking he'd be sort of like a Jrue Holiday thing, but he's smaller than Jrue Holiday. And we've kind of just transitioned to where this guy gives you point guard skills, but we're not going to want him to have the ball in his hands all the time. So you think about like, well, what kind of a player is that? It's somebody that's going to need to play next to a team that has like a big playmaker, or somebody that's like maybe even a Helio type guy. And he's lurking in the dunker spot to give you the extra. But, if you want to be, optimistic and you're looking at like the way the Boston built their team, there is a place for combo guards. It used to be a nasty word, but if you're a guy that can hit open shots, guard the ball, switch a little bit, I don't think it's hopeless, but optimism is a little hard to find for Bronny.
But you said he's small, doesn't handle it, and doesn't shoot it. Can you give a current
I didn't say he didn't handle it. I mean,
can you give a current NBA player who is earning 12 minutes a game at least with that qualification?
I think you are talking about the guys who are like the off-ball cutters. Like he's going to have to play in a certain type of a certain, and especially with the size, you think about closeouts and things like that. It's like that stuff comes into play.
Yeah.
He's got a 40-inch vert though.
Well, this is the thing. The guys who do fit that bill to some extent are like the Amen Thompson types, who are bigger than Bronny and
He's
like
6'6",
standout athletes.
6'7", 6'6".
Huge difference.
Yeah.
Huge difference as far as that goes. Like that's where he's behind the 8 ball is. Yes, he may be an elite athlete, but even that difference in size is monumental.
So I want to talk about 4 teams that we have identified as the most intriguing teams to go into the draft, primarily because there's only so much draft actual prospect analysis that we have on the set for you guys. I think we got to start at number 1, which is the Atlanta Hawks, who somehow got the number 1 overall pick here. Here's the question that I have written down, and something that I think a lot of people are talking about now. Are the Hawks, Kyle, you think a team that should be considering trading down? Because pretty much every draft, it seems like it's a bad idea to trade back out of a higher pick. I remember the Kings doing that, getting Papa Giannis, and then I think it was Justin Jackson. Yeah, and giving up.
He got released like a year later, I think.
Yeah. But does it make sense in this type of draft where there maybe isn't like a clear-cut top 5, but there's a lot of guys and you might just be looking for more bites at the apple as opposed to a higher one?
I mean, there's not a player here that we were talking about this on the draft show earlier, that like this draft, there is no kind of leverageable thing that is going to help you improve your team immediately. Like, and if you're Atlanta, especially the situation that they're in, where they're thinking like, okay, we've built this team around Trey. We're probably not going to pivot to Dejounte Murray season. Dejounte Murray hour. So, I mean, if you like a Donovan Clingan, who is like a big for UConn, who I think is going to be an above average anchor from day one in the league, it's just a matter of can he stay healthy. He's just a big, immovable, unavoidable object out there.
I can't believe he might go 1. That's incredible to me because he was awesome.
Are you wish casting him going number 1?
Not really, because I've seen what happens to Hasheem Thabit, for instance, going 2
this ain't
when
that.
he never should have gone that high. But the expectation doesn't help. If you're going 1, people are going to expect you to be a frontline All-NBA sort of guy.
I will say this as far as the Atlanta moving down part. A lot of the chatter you hear right now is a lot of teams wanting to move down, calling other teams who are also trying to move down. And that's the kind of thing that leading up to the draft is hard to execute, but you get there on draft night. And it's like maybe the one guy you actually do like is still there and you can talk yourself into it. But leading up to the draft, I don't think anybody's going to shuffle around that much.
Did you just hear this? Rob just became an information guy.
That's what I'm here for.
This is a major break. I'm proud of you.
I'm a broker. You put me out on the road, I'm going to get the scuttlebutt.
Reporter Rob.
I love
Rob
this.
Wojnarowski.
No one is saying that.
What do you think about the Hawks, Waz, just kind of going forward here? Do you think they need to get rid of one of these point guards, 2 of them? And how does that play into like their overall draft strategy?
I think they need to get rid of Trey, honestly.
Who wants Trey at this point? That's the question. Where do you think who's gonna pony up and say this is our guy? He's misunderstood.
The San Antonio Spurs to the courtesy phone?
I honestly think the Lakers make the most sense.
The Lakers?
If
How do you guys feel about that?
if
Trey
they
Young, Los Angeles Laker.
I see a thumbs down in the darkness and a lot of boos.
I mean,
I think
how much worse than D-Lo could he be? Give me a break.
That's part of the argument, yeah,
here?
for sure.
This is crazy.
Well, I just think if they maintain enough defensive guys. Like, can you swing a Trey trade? Is his value so low that you could do it with mostly picks and contracts, and then swing Reeves into someone who's more of a 3-and-D type, closer to the KCP model? And then you could almost like lean on Trey to be your Kyrie Irving type. Hope that LeBron and, God forbid, age 40 can still give you what he did this postseason. AD was fucking incredible this season. Probably had his best season plus postseason like his entire career. So I'm still bullish on the pairing of LeBron and AD plus another guy, as long as you maintain enough behind them.
I think Trey actually fits in a basketball sense with Bron and AD and what they're trying to do, because the guy can actually shoot it and handle it. He can make pull-ups off a pick and roll, all of that stuff. The reason why I say, though, I think Trey Young in a vacuum is a very good player. But in Atlanta, they made him the freaking king of the franchise. And so he's never going to do anything differently. Like, ownership, they would have to do an about face about how they've treated the guy the entire time. So I think he needs to change the scenery. And if he goes to LA, like, he's going to have to fall in line with the shit LeBron tells him to, right? And that's why I think that would make a lot of sense. And I think Atlanta should just be trying to do something new, do something different. The trade thing didn't work out. Like, you had your fluke playoff run. You swung a deal for Murray, which was, look, Trey has all these weaknesses. We're going to trade for a guy who sort of plugs up those holes. It didn't work. They gave up real shit to get Murray in there. Now it's time to just cut bait and do something different.
Is there any guy you like for them in the draft if they stick at one?
I mean, fitting with what they have right now, we've talked about how Sarr is an interesting. I don't know if you guys know who Alex Sarr is. It's Olivier Sarr's brother, if that's a nice reference for you.
That'll help.
You know, 7'1", he's very, very fluid. I've talked about how he moves a lot, kind of like Jonathan Isaac. But the point I've kept making is like, okay, let's say he's Jonathan Isaac, healthy. Even Jonathan Isaac caused spatial issues for Orlando, as incredible a defender as he is. So you think about the way a Derek Lively popped in the scenario that he was in with like a real lob thrower, a real pick and roll threat. Would Sarr have a similar thing? I just don't. That would all just assume that you're moving forward with Trey. So I like the idea of clinging with them. I wouldn't be surprised if they move off of the pick, just because maybe they can leverage that Trey with a team who's, I feel like this draft is sort of like a third. It's like a fulcrum for other things for teams to make moves rather than just the draft being the major focus itself.
Okay, so kind of the flip side of this with OKC as the number 12 pick in the draft. We're hearing them rumored maybe they do the balloon payment route in free agency, Hartenstein, some other guys, short deals in order to fill up the cap space until they have to go and pay the guys that they already drafted. Obviously, all you guys know those guys, Jalen Williams, etc. But do you think it would make more sense? And I guess they could also do this in conjunction with that, to trade up, basically do what they did with Case and Wallace and say, our draft capital actually affords us an opportunity to just go get what we want. It's actually not to swing a star trade. We're just going to have our preference and make sure we get it. Is there any, do you think that they should do this in this draft?
I'm sure Tyler is out there just mouthing, trying to convince me the right thing to say about this. But I personally think, like, the Thunder, I don't expect them to add another guy to, your whole team can't be on the same developmental timeline. And I don't think that they're going to find their missing starter in the top 10 of this draft based on the types of needs that they have. So if I'm the Thunder, I'm not looking for that. I expect them to make some other kind of move. Maybe it'll be to get a player. I think you need to get somebody that is more seasoned, whether that's like a player in their mid-30s, I don't know. But I just don't expect their missing piece to be somebody that's going to be one of the gang who's playing the same video games, listening to the same music. I don't think it's going to be that type of thing. Not going to be Gordon Hayward, it turns out. Yeah.
No, definitively not. But I think that's how you get into the Anunoby rumors. And he's been linked to OKC in the same way that Hartenstein has. Their solution to getting punked on the boards doesn't have to be a big. It could be a really good rebounding 3-4.
I've been trying to trade a Kongwu there. That's what we were talking about the Atlanta. I was like, if Atlanta's trying to pivot, you think you could squeeze. If we're trying to pivot and start a new era and we need a lot of picks, and we know who has those, who needs this, we have this guy that, I just think that's one guy that I've had my eye on as somebody that maybe I would go after if I were them. And he's on a good deal too.
I think the question was do you put any stock in how they built previously, where it's mostly young guys who grew up together? Obviously, they went and swung Jeff Green into Perk and had mixed results. So maybe they'd follow that same blueprint. but do you think it's like it's good to have all these guys on the same timeline because you've seen the results of like the chemistry, the barking, and all that shit as much as that actually has an impact on the actual product?
I just don't think your blueprint could be drafting 3 Hall of Famers in a row, right? At a certain point, you got to identify a known quantity and swing a trade for the guy. And so I'm with Kyle on that. I think they should be rounding up these picks to get a proven commodity, right? To get a Jrue Holiday, to get a veteran who you can count on what he's actually going to deliver, rather than be like, oh, we're so smart at picking Poku, we'll just draft again. Like, I think that's a crapshoot to me. That's just lottery tickets to me. I think they should be aggregating those picks to get real players, but I notoriously hate young people. So, like, I'm always here for go get a proven actual NBA player and move on.
Poku's EuroLeague mixtape years from now is going to be incredible. I'm just calling that right now. It's going to be something.
So I think what I heard from you is sneaky Draymond spot for them.
I don't. As sensitive as they are about the way they curate
the prairie. Oh my God, bruh.
Around young people again.
I would pitch the higher ups on making me the OKC beat writer for that. I'd want to be there every fucking day.
I did hear that quiet affirmation of your outline, though, Justin, that they need to trade for a Jrue Holiday type.
That's right. That's all that matters.
Well done.
Next team I have here, San Antonio, picks number 4 and number 8. I think this question is obvious. How the fuck do you build around probably the best prospect of all time?
I think this is one of the most interesting things in the whole draft because Wemby, if you go down, whenever we were doing our rookie reports, this is just sort of a reflection of who he is as a person. You know how you go on NBA.com and they have like the stats, and then there's a horizontal row of thumbnails of his press conferences, and every single thumbnail was Wemby looking like death. He just wanted to die, looked like an extra from like a Smith's music video or something. Like, so I think that what they need to do in terms of the basketball sense, if you go down and you're trying to like figure out what San Antonio needs to do, I don't think the analytics are going to reflect it really on a whole because they changed the way they punted Zach Collins into the sun. Poor guy, he's gone, and he's on the team, but just not involved in what they're doing anymore. That did not work.
Force about for him.
Yeah, and then Wemby just. I always talk about like adaptive. It just means smart, basically. It's a highfalutin way of saying smart. I mean, he just caught on to the NBA game, and you saw him learn very quickly, and that they figured out like, hey, maybe not. When he's driving into traffic and we have 10 guys, lunging at him to try to strip the ball, if we give him some space, incredible things are going to happen. So I think what you need to do that, obviously, is shooters. And I think that you need to find a way to like get him easy baskets because if you saw throughout the season, this team had more potential assists. They pass the ball fine. They just don't convert. Then they were number 1 in the league in potential assists. So I think they need shooting. I think they need somebody that can throw the freaking ball over the top to Wemby for the love of God, make his life easier in some way. And I think those are the 2 things that they're after, just from the outset.
Well, Rob, what would you, if you had to like conjure up a type of player?
Yeah.
What are you looking to put in next to
Jeremy
Wemby?
Sohan?
Yeah.
Is that not it?
Well,
yeah,
we'll see.
Right.
No, I do think you need organization. Like to what you're talking about, like all those discrete skills, they absolutely do need. They're just like pretty limited in terms of the actual talent on the roster right now. But they need someone who can put people in the right places, who can actually throw the kinds of passes that Kyle's talking about, get the low-hanging fruit that's going to make you into a credible team very quickly, but also is going to accelerate your timeline when you do get whoever the second star on the team is. And so the guys you trade for don't have to be stars in waiting. They can be guys who are just going to make you accelerate that much faster when you do get those stars.
Yeah, it's almost like what Houston did this year when they went out and got Fred VanVleet.
Yeah, the Fred VanVleet or like a Mike Conley type, like those kinds of players.
Just somebody with some level of organization because the Spurs offense was a mess. It was just nasty. And all of the people they were trotting out at point guard and facilitating, it just looked ridiculous. But Wemby is, like Kyle said, his mind for offensive basketball is already at a super high level in terms of dissecting defenses and how they want to guard him. And you get somebody of a high quality who also has that understanding. The 2 of them can do it. He can't do it by himself, though.
Can you find that guy in this draft? Like an organizer type? Is that Reed Shepherd or?
I think that they have a couple options that are interesting here. I think that, like, if you're looking for somebody that can make those passes, absolutely, my boy Reed Shepherd is like the best over-the-top transition passer in the draft. He's one of the best shooting prospects that we've seen in a long time. Ryan went on and on about that, and he was absolutely right that, like, Reed can catch it every which way, doesn't have to dip, it shoots super fast, it's going in. The question about him is he a self-creator? So I think you need somebody that can, and he has crazy defensive hands. So I think that under the shadow of Wemby's cover, I think that Shepherd would be in a good spot. The other option that I think that is interesting is they have a now or later kind of money situation where they've got Keldon, they've got Vassell, they've got, these guys that are younger and Sohan. They could go and spring for a Stephon Castle, who would be cheaper, and then say, like, okay, well, we can maybe I think that it's very possible that Castle could be better than Keldon Johnson. So you just think, okay, well, we'll do this now, and maybe we can trade for something, package that, and go get a player that you all are talking about.
So your suggestion almost like usher in a next generation after the first one kind of comes up with their contract.
What's nailed down if you're San Antonio? I don't know, because like they had some of the worst pick and roll decision makers of it. Like their young guys are learning on the job. You give them some grace. I don't know that they're going to get to a level that's going to be superlative. But like Wemby's handling the ball a lot too, so it may not matter as much. They'll be secondary.
Yeah, we walked right by Justin called Wemby the best prospect maybe of all time, and none of us blinked at it.
Who's even in the running?
Who are usually the compare?
Satchel Paige,
Hank Aaron,
Ty Cobb. Those guys, Hasheem Thabit, no, not so much. But yeah, no, I was definitely a skeptic coming into the season.
Yes, you were. I remember.
And just month by month, it just got dumber and dumber. And I was just like, oh, God, I got to walk this shit back too. And so I have.
You had a good night that first night of Summer League where he took a bunch of jumpers.
Oh, it was great. I was taking a victory lap. That
Scoot looked better than him at times. Yeah, that was.
I was like, it's over. Send him back to France. And then, no, he quickly got rid of that.
It's really become one of the rare pleasures of this job, watching you get to gloat on the nights where like the Celtics get blown out, on the one game where Victor misses shots.
Yeah,
I'm living. I'm thriving.
I think Wemby legitimately. I don't think this is controversial at all. I think he has a legitimate chance to break the MVP record, like the youngest winner. Like I think he's coming. I think next year he was incredible defensively this year. I think it's gonna be a problem. Like he's a real force in both directions.
I mean, ended second in Defensive Player of the Year ranking, right? In terms of the final voting. Nuts.
It's pretty good.
Pretty good.
Also have the Hawks future picks, which if they decide to go younger, I wonder if their next like Wemby co-pilot comes from that. So that'll be interesting.
Good.
Last team on the list here, the Los Angeles Lakers.
Yeah, baby.
Number 17 in the draft. And I'm curious, Kyle, can you find like a farther along, I won't say NBA ready because prospects typically aren't actually NBA ready, but like thereabouts at that point in the draft? Like what does the middle of the draft look like for the Lakers and other teams?
There are some guys that I think would work for them. I think the Lakers just need to really improve their bench. Rob and I were talking about this on a nice walk to tacos earlier, where it was like, if you look back over that series, it's like, okay, next year they didn't get just demolished, even though they lost in 5. It was sort of it was they're not as far away as you would think. And I'm just thinking, how do you improve your bench? Where do you go and get guys that are going to be able to just put up points immediately? I think there are some interesting like value plays. I was talking about star power. There's a couple guys that I wonder if I could package together 17 with something else to move up in the 11, 12, maybe even 10 range. Rob Dillingham, I think, would be an amazing Lakers bet.
Where did he go to college?
Yeah, well, it's so funny you say that.
Have you all seen Rob Dillingham? We're backstage. I was telling Chris, I was like, this is your guy. I was like, he's like Malik Monk mixed with like, he's a wild man, but he's so crazy talented. And that you're going to observe this as you guys start to dig into the draft stuff, or if you're ahead already, you probably know this, but like we have this weird thing going on where the most talented handler in the draft, the most talented shot creator in the draft, the most dynamic scorer in the draft, one of the most creative finishers in the draft, all 4 of those are Rob Dillingham. And yet, and I think he's every bit as talented. I've said this over and over again. He's just as talented as a Darius Garland. He's that kind of skill set. He's electric. He can pass the ball off the dribble. And yet people just aren't sure about him. I think you're going to see a team like the Lakers or somebody like that take a chance on him because it'll be worth it, because his star upside is crazy. He's very small. That's kind of a thing. But yeah, to answer your question, there are some older players that like a TJ Shannon parentheses problematic. Go read about that one. I mean, he's a guy that can put points up in a hurry. There's Baylor Shireman's a guy who can score the ball, but I don't know if that's a reach for him at that spot. I love Kevin McCullough. That's another one from Kansas. So there are some options, but yeah, Isaiah Collier is mocked there right now. If Collier became very, very interested in defense and took some pressure off of his inefficient offensive stuff, I think he could be a great player for a long time. But if he's going to be a Tariq Evans model for his life, it's going to be a rough ride. Very true. Very true. Yeah. Bronny suffered at the hands of that too. He also didn't help it.
That's what went wrong for him. I think the question overall, though, is should the Lakers be drafting this player and kind of feeding into this? At the very least, like what they're saying publicly is they want to get more in the developmental business or start to build the young core so that maybe AD has more of a longer runway. Or should we just trade this for a fucking star?
Well, they've decided they want to have a coach for more than a season and change. This is a big moment for them, a long-term outlook.
Yeah, 10 years.
You got to trade the pick if it means good players. Like, yeah. I just don't see why they need one of these damn kids from college on the team.
Is Trey that guy? Like, where does the line start for you? Like, is it Trey? Would it have to be like a Paul George type? Not that the Clippers and the Lakers would ever engage in a sign and trade.
I would prefer like 2 to 3 good role players over any of those guys, to be honest with you. I think the issue that you run into with the Lakers is that LeBron has kind of hit his limit in some ways in terms of what he can do at this age. And I think we saw it especially in the playoffs when he was reaching for that gear that we're all used to seeing. It wasn't quite there. And so you have some concerns about that, but I just don't think they're going to get solved. And so if that's kind of off the table, and I mostly think it is, I would rather just have a better supporting cast. I would rather have the ability to take weight off of him through other means than swing and miss at Paul George again.
I'm thinking about me if I'm the Lakers. I'm just like, LeBron may be here, maybe not. If we can get a player that's going to be, we'll just sit him to the side and maybe he can be something that helps us move in a new era. I wouldn't be moving heaven and earth to try to support that to upgrade that. Just I'd be thinking about myself if I'm the Lakers long term.
All right, well, check out Kyle. You're probably doing draft stuff for the Ringer next week?
I assume so, yes.
Okay, well, if Kyle does do draft stuff, check him out. But we're going to bring out Chris for one last segment because we're going to do some Q&A.
Y'all had some crazy ass questions, boy. I was like, what in the...
I edited the questions.
Well, you're a skilled editor, as everyone knows.
I still have some skills. This is my favorite one. NBA games are too loud. There should be more basketball purist nights. What kinds of themed events should the NBA force teams to implement? I love this. Just the other day, I was like completely like moved to tears by a video of Bob Costas introducing the 98
That's the
NBA
electric
Finals.
Shit, man. That's the electric shit.
And I was just like, this is riveting. And I think that my suggestion, this isn't for arenas, although arenas are too loud. I want ESPN2 to be ESPN analog, where it's just the game feed, a play-by-play guy. You only know what a guy has scored when he's at a free throw line. And it's just the score comes up like every other possession.
Yeah.
And otherwise, it's just basketball.
This happened during one of the playoff games. There was a problem with the audio, and it was just the game feed.
Yeah.
And I was like, this fucking rips. Do we actually even need play-by-play and like color analysts?
Are you hearing like cavernous like reverb and like sneaker squeaks kind of thing? Is that what you're talking
about? You're in the
about?
crowd. It almost makes you feel like you're at the game when you're on your couch. That's what I want.
I just want to know what Waz thinks of the phrase basketball purist tonight. That's all I want to know.
Like, my mind goes to like, does everybody bring a bag because they love bags so much? Like, my mind goes to theme nights, but I don't know. I'm somebody who will probably play a podcast or music basically every single NBA broadcast, honestly, until there's like 3 minutes left where I feel like I need to know what's actually happening on the court. So like, I don't want to fire people from their jobs in the media, but yeah, I don't need that shit.
Well, I think Chris,
they're bad.
You had this idea when we were talking in-season tournament earlier in the season, where it's like, what about just alternate like sites for some of these games? So, like in preseason, for instance, like the Lakers go down to Ontario, they play on a smaller court. It's a more intimate setting. Can we do something like that? Like you know, in college, Kyle, where they had those games on the aircraft carriers. Let's fucking put LeBron.
So those are competing
all
impulses.
Of them are horrible.
I just want different backdrops. Almost
We're
like we're in a
supporting
street fighter.
the troops. This is
The two choices are Ontario, Canada. or an Air Force carrier.
Fucking battleship. Yeah.
What about like a Street Fighter? Like
That's literally what I was thinking of was Street Fighter. Yeah. We want a big cage, you know. D'Angelo Russell crawls down the cage and onto the court. Like, I'm down for that. Yeah, for
Draymond throws someone into a bunch of trash cans.
It's
go
electric,
everywhere.
you know, like Mario Strikers.
But for all the second stream stuff that they do, I do wish there was like a third stream that was just like, Derek White's got the ball. He's going up to the 3-point line, passes off to Jrue Holiday. And that's like all we got. I don't need anything else.
Show your age, Chris.
All right. The Paris Olympics will have men's 3-on-3 basketball. The USA team is headlined by Jimmer Fredette.
That's right.
If you could pick any 3 U.S. players to represent the men's 3-on-3 team, who would they be?
Someone said Brunson. It's not bad.
Honestly, Jason Tatum's not a bad pick.
Well, you actually
Draymond Green,
you have to score in 3-on-3.
Jordan Clarkson. No,
Do you go like three?
Poole,
Does the dream of the 2005 Hawks live, and you just get like 3, 6, 9 guys out there? Is that the move?
I think they could win like that for sure. I think it's like who plays the best with a lot of space, right?
Yes, that's a great point.
I think it'd be like Steph. You'd need like pick and roll like concepts. You need like Steph. You need the best lob catcher ever, Anthony Davis, and then you'd need. No, I'm just saying you'd need a lob threat. I mean, he'd be unstoppable. He'd hit the occasional 3, and then you'd pick your wing. It'd be somebody that can handle the ball, like 6'6", 6'7". Yeah.
I just want gunners. I want fucking Malik Monk. I want Jordan Poole. I want Jordan Clarkson. I want Ice Cube just like being the general manager for this entire endeavor. Cameron Brink, who I think is going
Katino
into
Mobley.
the women's
Let's go.
team. What's that?
It's like Katino. Let's go full big 3 with this thing. Like,
Love
let's
it.
bring in all the alumni.
It's great.
Will Luka Doncic retire a Maverick?
Pretty sure a serial killer wrote this, by the way. I don't know if we ever can get the cops. Yeah.
And is he already the greatest Maverick of all time? So the second one is absolutely not. Dirk's got the ring.
Yeah.
How dare you?
I think both of those questions are no. I just think outside of like a select few, I could see like Tatum say, you know, retiring with the Celtics, right? But outside of that, there's not a player, maybe Jokic as well. I could see him.
I could just see him straight up retiring. You know, like,
like straight up. Like 12 years is like, all right, I'm out of here. But Luka, I think, will eventually be out of there someday. Like, there's so much smoke around Luka, especially when you hear about, well, the Mavs are always in panic mode. They always got to feel. It's just like, why would they feel that way if there was an indication like, yo, guys, I don't have to be here, and I would love to do something different if y'all don't fix this shit. So I think Luka will definitely play for another team, and I've heard people say the Lakers want to get him. So y'all do with that what y'all want.
Yeah, the will he retire question is kind of similar to me to like, can this guy win a title as a number 1 option? The answer is almost always no. There's a very, very select group of people who actually do that. And yeah, I really don't see him staying there for the entirety of his career.
Well, we have seen more recently guys stay. Giannis being the prime example of that. So far. But I also think those teams were proactive about getting more superstars to put around him. And as good as the Mavs did, as good of a job as they did this trade deadline, like, who's the next star for the next wave for Luka? Is it Lively? I don't know if he's ever going to get to that sort of ceiling.
Yeah, maybe not.
Kyrie's going to be probably 34, 35 by the time that Luka's contract comes up. So I think the Mavs have probably more of a defined window. I don't want to be a killjoy because they did so good this year, but like, it's probably more of a defined window than people.
But what about the Black Israelite? He's not the superstar. Luka's superstar teammate.
I'm afraid to ask who you're talking about.
Is Kyrie Irving not the superstar teammate?
One of the big things too is that like we have yet to see the free agency, like seismic free agency move that has involved superstar European players, if I'm not mistaken. And we've yet to cross that line. Like I always kind of wondered it'd be really interesting if like Giannis and Luka teamed up, or you know, I'm curious to see if we ever see that actually happen. Yeah.
For the other part of that, I mean, Dirk has said repeatedly that Luka is a better player than him already, for whatever that's worth, and he's like shattering every single record in Mavericks history. So I think it may be more of a matter of time. And I say that as someone who's probably defended Dirk as ardently as anybody in the NBA media.
3-parter here that I'm going to reverse the order of the questions to segue off of Luka here. So one is an over-under. Luka rings 1.5. I'm smashing the under. Because look at the last 5 years of the NBA.
Yeah.
Like we're
it's
like,
just hard to get multiple.
And I watching this playoffs, for as dazzling as Luka was, I did not come out of there being like, that dude is an Iron Man, you know? So like, I could see Luka missing a season. I could see Luka getting hurt in the playoffs. Like, it was a great run, but that's just my feeling. What about you?
I think you're right. Yeah. And I think his model's just really hard too. I mean, what do you all think about like offensively? I feel like he's going to have some kind of big shift in how he plays. I mean, I know Kyrie was an adjustment, but yeah, I would go under on it. That's kind of where I'm on it. Yeah.
Number of Wemby MVPs, 1.5.
I feel over.
Yeah,
I think it's over.
It's way
it
over.
feels like over.
Way over?
Yeah, we're talking Jordan numbers here.
I mean, it feels irresponsible, but it feels so right. I don't know what to tell you.
I think the only thing
Rob said that before.
that could derail I think there's nothing derailing the over, honestly. I think he'll get 2 MVPs for sure. But Jordan, like, he has to not break his leg, not mess up his foot, not mess up his knee.
How good do the Spurs have to get before he wins an MVP?
I think next year he'll be in consideration if they're even a. I think they'll be at least a play-in team.
They're going to be bad next year.
Let's put a win
I don't know
total,
about
40,
that.
50 wins. I mean, like what's the total? What's it got to be?
I
heard that was Isaiah,
I could hear
clearly.
Isaiah back there, our producer. Yeah, that's probably a bit much.
Do you think the Spurs can win 50 games next year?
No, I'm saying, what does the number have to be? Like, how soon do we?
No,
yeah.
I want to get push Justin on. Does he think the Spurs are going to win
You wanna
50
pin me
games?
down on something?
I would like an answer on that.
Wemby was his defensive player of the year this year, too.
What was OKC last year? Was it like 45, 46, something like that?
I'm
Or
not
no,
sure.
it was like closer to 42. They were closer to 400. I think we're in like the 45 to higher range.
I do think he could have the most compelling case ever for like an 8th seeded team.
Yeah.
In terms of having an actual shot to win MVP.
And he was a mistake.
Let me do this. This is the last one. This one seems to sum up kind of a little bit of where we're going here tonight. This was a shocking question, though. Can we admit that the Mavs had no business in this series? Had the Nuggets not fallen asleep at the wheel, we would have gotten best on best thoughts. I think the Nuggets, if they had beaten the Timberwolves, like we would have had a conversation, and they didn't. And then the Mavs beat the Timberwolves, and that's how it works in the NBA.
But we didn't, did we?
Fuck you. Anyway, like, to me, I think the NBA is becoming a little bit closer to football in the sense that, like, the matchups actually, like, do matter, right? Like,
Which football are you talking about?
not the beautiful game. I'm talking about American football, where, like, you know, if you have a run-heavy attack and you're playing a team that has an incredible run defense, then they're going to fuck you up, right? And they might run into a team that can exploit them via the pass, and that's just how the cookie crumbles in terms of matchups. I don't know how you could watch them beat all of these teams who were reasonably healthy, who were showing themselves to be a very high quality all season, and say they had no business being in the finals. That doesn't make any sense to me.
I also love it. Like, maybe OKC could have used 1 or 2 or 5 extra large people in order to go toe-to-toe with some of the bigger teams. But there really was kind of a like coin flip sort of thing where it's like this small ball team that attacks from the perimeter has to go against this big ball team, and this team shoots a bunch of threes, but we're going to pound you inside with this team. There's much more variety, which we haven't had a lot of in recent years.
All that's true. And I also, part of me kind of thinks at this point the Celtics might have just beaten everybody. I think if the Wolves had gotten there, I think they would have gotten smoked. Kyle's been on all season about the fact that the Celtics are really like a more evolved version of the Thunder in a lot of ways. I think
Thanks, Rob.
A more advanced version of that formula. I think they would have beaten them. Denver is clearly the biggest wild card just because of the matchup question, but they looked incredible even when they don't play that well. And
I will never
thing.
say that shit, okay? The Nuggets not getting to the finals is the new perk. We undefeated with perk in the lineup. Sorry, I'm taking that till I die. Fuck that.
All right. Why don't we wrap it there? Everyone give it up to Chris Ryan and Jay Kyle, man. We love these guys. Thanks for joining us tonight. Thank you to our producers who have been with us all season, Isaiah Blakely, Ben Cruz, Eddie Ocampo.
Yes, sir.
Thank you to Elizabeth Fearman for helping us out and her crew. Thank you to you guys for joining us.
Absolutely.
We really appreciate it. If you want to join us, we're doing like meet and greet in the lobby, pictures and all that. But we will talk to you next time. Thanks for coming out.
Thank you.